think you've got the executive background, executive HR background, right? So you've been with Fortune 100 companies, and you, after 25 years, did you burn out? How did you leave?
That's exactly where my mind went there as I started to introduce myself, and I was like, breaks. Yeah, so I worked for corporate all my life, and it was really interesting. When I left college, I stepped right into this role into Wall Street, and just kind of went right into performance. I was a consummate overachiever most of my life, and became whoever I needed to be, right? Back in the day, it was like, you can be anything a man can be. You can do anything you want to do as long as you mimic and mirror what you thought excellence was or what you thought charismatic was. And so I learned how to put on those achievement hats and mimicking, and I just went for it. I went through a lot of Fortune 50s. I was always kind of in this crisis startup turnaround situation, and I loved it. I loved the challenge. I loved the thrill. I loved the movement. It was like every 18 months was a new role. And I fell into HR and tech, and kind of was like that integrative person who was like, here's HR, and I got what you guys were trying to do, and here's tech, and I got what they were trying to do. And as anybody who comes from corporate knows, they both have their own mindsets. And I was a great integrative person who was like, okay, let's try to work this out. And as I progressed through my career, I think the biggest thing was I just wanted to get to that next level, right? If I got to that next level, then I could feel this. So while I was growing and learning and loved the business and loved delivering to my clients, inside, I was constantly looking for that next hit. And what that means in real life today was that eventually, when you're running on what I call borrowed power, which we can get into, is at first that works, right? At first, you're like full of learning. And then at some point, there's the rest of your life. There's who you're being. There's enjoying the journey, which I know we all know that sentence, but not always what that means inside. And you run out. You run out of that borrowed power. And my last company, I was definitely on my kind of fumes where I was running. And I did everything I could to be everything they needed me to be. But inside, I was not fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I wasn't making the impact. I didn't have meaning. I had sacrificed all the other amazing things in my life. And I burn out. I was on a burnout path. And when I got there, it was just, you can't sustain. And you start the self-doubt, and you start all the things that come in with burnout. And it felt like a weakness, and I just kind of flatlined.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something, I having both experienced burnout. I look back on who I was when I was burning out, and I wasn't myself. And I would say I was myself for the most part in corporate. I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing, right? But then whenever the burnout hit, I was irritable. I was going from meeting to meeting, and I just didn't understand the purpose, and things were constantly changing, and it was just so much. And I remember like just feeling so tired on the inside and not really knowing what that meant. But I literally like walked out of the restroom and looked at the HR area, and I stopped, and I'm like, why am I so tired on the inside? Like exhausted. And I mean, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know what it was until I got tapped on the shoulder and let go. And the morning after, devastation, right? But the morning after, relief that I didn't have to go in there anymore.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was something. And then I slept for 2 months, and then I was like, oh, okay, so this is what burnout is.
Yeah. That's great. You recovered in 2 months.
Well, I don't know that I recovered in 2 months, but I
Yeah.
slept for 2 months.
Yeah. That's awesome. I just remember running on this feeling that I had all the energy in the world, and all of a sudden at 50, when you feel like you're falling short, which is in your head, because you're
Mhm.
not really taking cues from the truth of what's happening. You're taking cues from whatever your last wounded person inside is telling you, whatever story. I heard this thing where someone said, you don't show up with the wounds of your childhood. You show up with the patterns that you use to deal with those wounds. And so there you sit later in your career, and you're in these patterns, and you're telling yourself these stories, and I can do it, I can be better. And I was pulling all-nighters for what I now know as perfection, which is what happened when we started this conversation. All of a sudden I was like
Uh,
flooded. And
mhm.
the number one thing that hits me when I'm flooded is my voice.
Ah,
Because although perfection didn't stop progress, and I know it's like progress over perfection is a big thing we
mm,
said in HR, it
mhm.
never stopped my progress. What it stopped me from was feeling enough with my progress.
Mm.
And that type of story in your head is just a mind blow, right?
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
a lot of people in HR, especially, they don't feel, right? Because they're the ones touting, you can do it. Let's do progress over perfection. Let's keep the deadlines. Let's make everybody happy. Let's support the company. Let's support the people. But who's taking care of what you're doing inside? And if you're not showing up as you,
Mhm.
your message outward, your voice outward, you know, becomes mired in crazy stories
Yeah.
and limitations,
Yeah.
like joining
Mhm.
and losing your voice, or getting
Mhm.
flooded, like, "Oh, what am I gonna say is perfect?" Like, God
Yeah.
forbid you're not perfect, because 'cause you're the front. You're the person showing
Mm.
up.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
And I can remember too, like walking in whenever I was, before I was let go, I was walking into work and I was just like, I am so grateful to be able to come in here. And the thing, because I was trying to practice gratitude, right? So I was trying to like follow all the things that you hear. And I was lying to myself. I was, I didn't believe it on the inside, but I was still trying to be that person and recognize like, oh my gosh, I have this great job. I have this, great opportunity. I've been here for 7.5 years. Like it was, so many things. And in reality, I was dying on the inside.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, I was actually talking to my best friend this morning. Her son is graduating from high school tomorrow, and her daughter's 16 and she wants to go to Europe to art school. And it's really interesting because she's like, yeah, her dad wants her to go to school in North Carolina and become a government agent. And she has like art school and that, two
Wow.
totally opposite things, right? But
Wow.
he sees the security and all that from a perspective of corporate and,
Yeah.
get the good job, do the things. And at what point do we sacrifice ourselves for what society believes is the right thing to do? And I
At
think we've done that,
at
right?
no point,
Yeah.
at no point.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is, as you're saying that, I can say no point because 'cause I'm here now.
Mhm.
I could see how that juxtaposition is hard, but when you are making decisions from a space of beliefs, I'm gonna call them limited. I'm not
Mhm.
It's not insulting, it's just like our consciousness, right? If you are unconscious about the lens you're looking through when you're making decisions, you can't create something innovative, new, or think outside the box from that place,
Mhm.
right? So that comes from parenting. If you're stuck in that space, it comes from leadership. It can be in your relationships, right? So it's a complete place of stuckness,
Yeah,
I'd
for
say.
sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, here this little girl's 16 years old, and she's having things pushed on her that, society says are the right way to do things. But she's like, that's not what I want. And so,
Yeah.
and I shared, I'm 48 years old. I got married for the first time on May 8th. I met the love of my life in 2023. And we got married this year. I am working for myself. I have never been happier. I wouldn't consider myself successful in my business at this point. However, I've never been happier. And I don't need that corporate paycheck to make me happy. Do you know how many things I bought that I did not need
Yeah,
whenever I was in corporate? Oh
everything.
my goodness, that retail therapy was real, right? So I am figuring this out, and it would be way easier. Trust me, it'd be way easier to go back to corporate, way easier,
Yeah,
because then you have that security, you have all that. But I refuse. I
yeah,
refuse to sacrifice myself anymore.
yeah. So many things came to mind. First of all, yes, I needed a private Amazon drone. Two,
Same.
there's something you said about way easier.
Mhm.
I would challenge that because certainty feels good because that's like human nature. That's a human
Mhm.
experience. We want to go for certainty, but then we get uncertainty and we want variety, right?
Yeah.
And if we're driven by certainty and significance, we miss all this other stuff. And as you get older, you will spontaneously combust. You will start to fight yourself in that.
Yeah.
And the first thing to go is joy, fulfillment, other areas of your life, your vitality, your health, then your relationships, right? I mean, there's a whole pyramid of
Yeah.
things. Um, but I would question the definition of success, of how you
Yes.
said, I don't consider myself a success yet, which shows everybody who's listening and anyone who's thinking about this that even though we're finding, you and I are finding joy in this new business and these opportunities and not working for someone else, there's something still there that defines our success,
Mhm.
right? And that is a forever growth.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And that, I think that's the key though, right? What is success to you? And that's an individual determination. That's not something that anybody can tell you what success is. Society can tell you what success looks like on the outside, and that's having the big house and the nice car
Mhm.
and, the fancy bags and all those things. But in reality, in my opinion, I think experiences are
Yeah.
much more, fulfilling than all those things. But I live in a house, and I have a car and those types of
Mhm.
things. So those needs are met.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an interesting journey for sure. And another thing that came up recently was I was told that whenever I went out on my own, if I had to get another job, not to feel bad because it takes time to build a business, right?
Yeah.
And my first thought was, well, it will never be going back to corporate. It will be like a serving job or a bartending job or something like that. And the funny thing is when I thought about that, that's what was acceptable to me. But when I think about the people that I left behind in corporate, they would look at that as failure.
Yeah.
And to me, that was success because I
Yeah.
was out of it. I was gone. I was out of that machine,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting how our viewpoints change because we're exposed to different things.
Oh, 100%. I'm trying to think of what success looks like to me, and there are times where I'm like, I just want the comfort of bartending or waiting
Mhm.
tables or whatever. And then, which I learned through human design, when you're called, when you're called to show up in the moment and share what your lived experience is in hopes to either accelerate or share your gifts that you can maybe see things that are seemingly disconnected and help people put it together. I think even if I went to waitressing or bartending, which I love, and I'm not measuring that, I would still be in conflict with who I am.
Mhm.
But it would feel so good because it'd be familiar and fun and I'm outgoing. But there'd be a point where I'd be like, because you're
Yeah.
still not keyed into who you're meant to be, I guess, in that
Right.
moment.
Right. That's very true. And I think, and this was a learning experience I talked about on a live yesterday, but I took a fractional role last year.
Mm.
And, it was a client of mine that needed some help. So I came in and I took, it was 3 half days a week. And that burnout came right back.
Wow.
I was exhausted when I
Yeah.
came home. I couldn't do anything else. 3 half days a week,
How long?
and it
How long did
was
that take?
3 months.
That's quick.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it came right back, and that's what I was like, I don't care what they're paying me. I can't do, like, I am not this is not where I need to be. And my fiance at the time was like, I don't understand. Like, you're making really good money. Like, suck it up, you know? And I
Right.
was just like, no, this is not who I am anymore.
Yeah.
And they were great people and great, it was a great environment, all the things, but it was just, it came right back. And
Yeah.
I would be sleeping as soon as I came home. I would be on the couch sleeping and just taking a nap.
Shut down.
Yeah.
That's the hidden cost,
Yeah.
of operating in a way that, works. I hate this. I'm not like GPT language. It works on paper,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's quietly suffering. And the fact
Mhm.
that it's 90 days, I did a similar thing. The first 90 days, that book from way back when,
Mhm.
I was just like, who could do anything in that? You take so long, but it is true.
Yeah.
In your core in 90 days. I,
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I went through the same thing, and I took 2 years off after um, my final exit from corporate. And I literally I was struggling. I was really struggling because of the pressure of knowing, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I good at? And if you ask yourself the wrong questions enough, your brain will start to answer them.
Mhm. With
And
the wrong answers, right? Yeah.
absolutely, I was cracking up. I learned from someone who's like 25 this weekend. I went to a retreat in Lake Tahoe recently, and it was just filled with amazing people. It was a mind, body, spirit, like holistic retreat to get you out of your mundane everyday life and get you into nature so that you could connect with other things. And someone said, I go to my mind to get information, like the file, and then I go to my heart to make sense of it and figure out what to do next. And I was like, I mean, I understood it, but I was just like,
Right.
how do you even know how to do that? And it's like this
Yeah.
whole newer generation, they're born into a different consciousness, like the new era
Mhm.
consciousness, right? They just have just this awareness of what's important and what matters and why, and
Mhm.
they tinker with it so much earlier. Like I would have never said a sentence like that
I was
at
gonna
that
say
age.
just putting it into words.
Yeah.
Like, being able to do it is one thing in and of itself, but being able to do it and explain what you do,
Yeah.
that's impressive. That's extremely impressive.
Yeah. It's like they had such command over their actual inner authority,
Yeah, for
their
sure.
ability to lead they trusted their clarity and their confidence and their steadfastness that there wasn't one purpose. They were going to figure it out, and they knew the difference between operating from performance and force. It was just beautiful. It was really
Mhm.
cool.
And it makes us admire them back then because we weren't that.
Yeah. And speaking to HR, it is a different way to lead and influence, right?
Mhm.
And I saw that even when I was my last 10 years, just the way I was leading had to shift, right? What I was
Mhm.
expecting from people, how I expected them to show up and share and talk and grow and be creative and innovative and counsel others. This strategic business partnership concept came out so long ago, and I was lucky enough to be a part of that in the late 90s and early 2000s. But like teaching that was such a buzzword, but really that's what it was about, was
Right.
helping leaders find their inner authority, their true voice, and helping them be and show up as them. Because then you listen, you use your team right, you inspire your team right, you inspire yourself right. You know how to talk about problems and challenges in a way that aren't offensive. You can come up with solutions differently. Like there's so much goodness in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the thing is we realize as HR professionals that we work with all these leaders to grow and develop them, but who grows and develops us,
Mm.
right? So that's where where I kind of find my passion is growing and developing these HR leaders because they don't have anybody unless they have a great mentor. They don't have anybody to grow and develop them.
That's right.
I do a workshop, and one of the things before the workshop is I have them complete a leadership reflection. And a lot of the things that come through in that leadership reflection are things that I've felt in my career. And one specifically that I've been working on this week was I feel they won't listen to me. Why won't they listen to me? And oh my gosh, I felt that in my bones, right? And I was like, oh, let me help you, you know. And so I actually created this like executive presence plan. And so things
Wow.
they can do, like 4 steps they can take in order to get buy-in. And a lot of it is that pre-meeting
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
right? With the key stakeholders. So it's been a lot of fun digging into that, but also hearing what it's flashbacks to hearing what they're struggling with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, HR professionals spend a lot of time developing those leaders, but no one's developing those HR professionals.
Yeah. And a lot of times the great skill that draws people into HR and that HR has to offer sometimes in the business, I know it's hard to like have that seat at the table. You talk about someone's rolling out a massive program or you're leading a charge of a project and you talk about change management adoption and the whole room's like, wow, wow. Yeah, 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 but I need the fine, the this, the that, the tangible stuff. And you realize like your whole project is gonna be like fall flat if no one changes and adopts to it. And I found this a lot because I was in the technology side rolling
Oh
out
yeah.
global tech. And we could charge for it all we want and implement anything you want, but people will find a way to avoid that, which
Oh
just
yeah.
leaves you in a bigger mess. And so
Mhm.
learning how to teaching HR leaders how to talk about what they do in a buy-in kind of way, right? And to
Mhm.
in a tangible way is almost like coaching,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't say like what you do because it still doesn't the words don't make sense, right?
Mhm.
It's the benefits of the outcome,
Right.
you
That
know?
that's a great statement. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk forever about corporate, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about human design and what you've learned. Like how you've been her program in Julie's program for about a year. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So talk to me about human design and what that discovery has been like.
It has been a journey because also if you're not in the right headspace, it's beautiful language and can be woo, right? If your brain is fighting it. And I think what I learned probably earlier this year was the concept of voice. Um, like, when we talk about the lines, there's 6 lines, we talk about the flavors of those lines and like learning what that line means to you, like how you were designed and how your voice was meant to be heard. That's one thing. But 93% of communication is nonverbal. So you can have all these great words and talk about the benefits of the outcome. But if you're not showing up in the right energetic frequency, no one's going to hear that. Right. So not only does human design allow you to study yourself so that you can go from challenges to um, an easier transformative best self, highest version of self. That way you're showing up as that, then it flows. Like when
Mhm.
I first joined, I'm going to go back to this live, my head was in it. I was like, what am I going to, structured. I'm in sales mode. And then I got overwhelmed
Mhm.
and so I'm out of frequency, right? I'm in the challenge. I'm in the shadow of my design, which is seriousness, force, lack of clarity. That is a challenge. And when I speak from that, or I speak from a over authoritative way, nobody hears me.
Mhm.
Right. And then it's like, oh God, just stop, just be in your intuition. It's your energy, right? I've learned that it's my energy, it's the connection, it's the network and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, they want to be in it. Things get settled.
Mhm.
You start to flow. You're having a conversation. So in human design, that was really it for me. It was really finding my voice by design. And again, I go back to this weekend with that retreat. And I was a little older than a lot of the people, but I love outdoor stuff. So I went and challenged myself. I'm rock climbing, all the things.
Oh,
But when
very
we were
cool.
yeah, it was so cool. When we were in the circle, if I didn't totally stay in the moment and show up as me um, and I say as me, I'm always me, but as me in the context of what we were talking about, I wasn't heard. Not ignored, but my
Mhm.
points didn't land, and I couldn't connect. It was really fascinating. And I was like, why aren't people
Same.
listening?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing though. I swear human design is an amazing um like journey into emotional intelligence, right? Because
Yeah.
that self-awareness is so important and it's something that we don't always have. But
Right.
having studied what we studied, we're able to see, okay, wait, this is why this is happening. Let me shift, get my mind right. And I absolutely love, honestly, what happened in the beginning because I think that's such a visual presentation of what we're talking about, right? I
Yeah.
think it's so it shows what that looks like in the shadow, but
Mhm.
then what that looks like in the wisdom because now we're having great conversation,
Right, right, right,
you
right.
know? So
I'm
it's
glad you
really
loved
cool.
that.
Yes, right? And that's I mean, but that's what we're here for, and that's
Yeah.
what we learn from each other, and those are and learn from doing as
Yeah.
well. So,
Did you find this in human design too? Is when I first learned it,
mhm.
true to form, wanting to be perfect and master everything, I wanted to learn it all. And it
Yes.
was like playing whack-a-mole. Like, oh,
Yes.
I could learn this, and if I just crush this, and if I apply this, and I just wanted to learn it all. But it doesn't work like that. And I think what's so great is that it's not it's not who you're supposed to be right now. It is a roadmap for potential. Whether you reach it
Mhm.
or not, as long as you progress,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that was such a gift to learn." And it allows you to, I don't know, have more grace with yourself, which
Mhm.
which then allows you to show up as yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And you understand yourself. Like you understand like, "Oh, okay, this is coming up. So let me figure out what's going on here." Girl, I bought like 26 books. I think I'm on my 26th human design book. So I'm right there with you with trying to learn it all.
Yeah.
I haven't read any from front to back, but I use them as resources, right? Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah.
But it's and I started doing some deep dive into like, okay, what's my type and what did I learn about myself based on when I learned my type, and then what did I learn about myself when I learned my profile. I'm a 1-3, right? So I have to research everything, hence the 26 books of human design, and
Yes.
then also like try things out, test them, because
Mhm.
all my life I've been told I'm stubborn. I think I was just told I was stubborn yesterday. So, but it's not me being stubborn. It's
No.
me and the way I have to learn,
Yeah.
and like understanding that because, everybody looks at me and says, "Oh, you're so stubborn." And that doesn't sound like a good thing, right? But when I understand how I learn, yeah, I've got to learn that way. That's how I learn. I'm not necessarily
Mhm.
stubborn. It's just how I learn.
Right.
So it's just really interesting that even when other people put those like negative words on us, we dive into it and we kind of understand a little bit more about what that means and where that's coming from.
Yeah. It's so true. I was uh, getting to know you in the recent weeks that we've gotten to know each other, and, you're like, "I'm over here just trial and erroring," and I was like, "Oh," because we have similar, like, I'm a 4-6, you're a 1-3, but, they're different the way they manifest,
Yes.
and yeah,
That
trial.
sounds like your nightmare.
Yeah, it does, it really does. However, when I'm in my shadow, I wanna master stuff,
Yeah.
but I just learned, especially through this authority architecture, like the bigger picture of who we're actually being as a whole. You learn stuff about yourself and how you're meant to show up. And when you ignore that, I learned something about being outdoorsy and being active. And when I try to mimic, which imagine everything we learned, especially about being a leader or HR or whatever role you're
Corporate,
in,
anything.
you
Yeah.
you learn very distinct, like, do this, mimic this. And
Mhm.
when I learned about myself, like when I try to mimic, and I'm not in flow and in my movement, I, I completely, I lose access, literally lose access to what my gifts are, or my zone of excellence, or better, my zone of genius, right? And
Mhm.
it's fascinating to watch.
You were operating that way for how many years?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Many.
That's what's like heartbreaking, right? But I mean, I say that, but also like I'm grateful for my experience, and I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
Our past experience has brought us to where we are today. I'm
100.
grateful for that, that. So I don't fault our past experience, because the more we know, the better we can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Like life is happening for you.
Yep.
You
Yep,
know, you're in
exactly.
a challenge, you're afraid of something, and fear is a killer when you can't grapple with it. But when you're in that challenge state, it's like, what can I learn from this? I used to think life is happening for me meant, um, there's a reason for this.
Mhm.
Who knows what the reasons
Right.
are, but it's not. It's like, what can I learn from this? How do I make
Mhm.
myself better from this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the trial and error is. It's okay, that didn't work. And it's so funny because one of the I think one of the descriptions of the 1-3, or I think it was the 3, is you bump into life. And I'm like, "Oh, if that's not more true." Like, because things come up that like I can remember just being at work and certain things like just show up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I was supposed to do that and I completely forgot." But something in the universe or something brought it to my attention so that it was done, and it wasn't like late or, whatever. And I can just remember, like, what would I have done if I didn't do that? Just those random, and
Yeah.
it's like, but I mean, I bump into life and that's what happens,
Yeah.
and it's so crazy how when you see it in words.
Yeah. It is. And then when you start to see the patterns coming
Yeah.
out of that.
Yep.
So, like, how do you translate that to without giving without having a year to digest everything you think you need to learn? Like, what are the bite-sized pieces that you can take away and apply right away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, those are the gifts to
Absolutely.
to to figure out what's interfering at the moment with your ability to lead or communicate or connect even, right?
Mhm.
When we ruminate and we're isolating and we're in a shame spiral or force, we can't connect, right? And so we can't even
Mhm.
hear. And it's like, how do we recognize those patterns in the moment so that we can say, no, I'm okay.
Right.
Let
Right.
let me step forward and I know why I'm here. I know
Mhm.
I'm a I'm a team of one. I know that a lot of times the people you're helping are uh, you know, HR people who are running a lot of shows.
Mhm.
And we talked about certainty. It's so easy to fall back into, oh, here's the things I do because I'm good at them and they make me feel good, but they're not adding value. And you have to do the other things, but they're a little scary and you're unsure and people can't hear you or they don't understand the value. Like, what's the
Mhm.
pattern? And just,
Yep.
boldly take a step.
Yeah. I I think this is a good segue into talking about, because we are both corporate, right? We're both, our past were 20 plus years of corporate, 25 years of corporate. And now we're looking at human design, and we believe it with our whole being. We are so in, because it gives us answers to things we've been wondering probably for the last 40 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it explains, like I said about being stubborn, right? It explains why I am the way I am, stubborn, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think? Because I always think that corporate is not going to be open to human design. They're open to Enneagram, they're open to Myers Briggs, they're open to DISC, they're open to all these things, but human design is a different tool. So, how do you think your clients would react if you, or if maybe you have exposed them to human design? And I'd love to hear your input on this, because I think this is something that I grapple with myself,
Mhm.
because I just don't know. And I will say, I posted in an HR community, "Hey, I'm getting my human design certification. Would anyone be interested in a free analysis?" I had 15 people reply.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to me. But what has your journey been like? What has your experience been like? And I don't know that, if that's just a certain group of HR people or if that would be everybody. Like that was just interesting.
Yeah. I I I think I agree with kind of your approach, and I grappled with it for a long time. Like I wouldn't even use the word
Mhm.
because I think a lot of people are craving some bigger understanding, right? I at least the people I associate with and that are in my tribe and in my communities, they love learning about kind of this divine concept. Science is bringing in quantum physics, and there is this element of energy. And so I think that's where I go with this, because when you think about bringing human design in on a corporate scale, like with teams and the impact it could have, and it's a mechanism. It's one of many mechanisms, right? It's not it I don't lead with that, but I do lead with energy. And my like core conviction is energy is the most underutilized asset in leadership, right? I
Mm,
mean, strategy cannot compensate for leader operating from borrowed power and lack of energy.
mm,
And you can't throw more money at it, you can't throw more resources at it, but you think about how contagious energy is. So I take that angle, and sometimes I show up and I just ask, like, who thinks energy is contagious? And everyone, yeah, 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 me too. And then you just kind of go through the scenarios. Like you walk into a restaurant and there's this really cute couple in the corner, and they're like, and you feel that lovey dovey, unless you're like a little bitter, then you're like, get away from me.
mm,
But you feel that lovey dovey in a customer service situation or at the DMV, and there's conflict, you feel that. And so imagine, let's just take it personal. Imagine a leader who has stepped into a new role, who is unsure, who has been a rock star their whole life. And now they're in a state, maybe something's going on personally, but they're unsure and they're doubting themselves. And they maybe have a little imposter, but they're never going to show it because they learned how to have the mask. So they show up hiding their fear, and then they deliver their message to the team or a town hall or wherever. That, and not the words, that energy is
mm,
contagious, right? And you
mhm,
can you can feel it from leaders who either show up and they're like, I'm winging it here. This is new for
right,
me, and are okay with being an imposter. They don't love it, but they're like navigating it, versus they stayed up all night to prepare because they're
mhm,
not feeling good enough. And so to me, I just bring that concept in, and this concept of borrowed power, because so many people in the leadership position right now have just been taught to just do it.
mhm,
And they're operating on this energy reserve that we might have had in our 20s. And then in
mhm,
our 30s, it gets thinner. We get spread thinner. What worked then is no longer working because you have evolved and you need different skills, right? And so all of that, and I introduce it through those two things. And I think once you start to show that scenario to me, and it's and you're bringing in that example of what you can do, the power of teaching people a common shared language is the first gift.
mhm.
So to
For
me,
sure.
that's the entry point. It's just like,
Yeah.
this is what it feels like when you choose consciously how to show up for yourself, your stakeholders, your leaders, your team, your relationships, your community, like whatever,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And I think energy is something we all feel, like you said, right? So it's something that, if there's tension in the air, my husband can go into a space and he'll be like, "Whoa, that was tense." He senses that stuff immediately. I tend to protect my energy a bit, and so I kind of put a wall up, I think, just because I have a completely open emotional solar plexus. So
Yeah.
I am like very sensitive to that stuff. So I have to protect myself as much as I can. But
Yeah.
he's very, very he feels that immediately, and I think that's something everybody can relate to as energy, right? Because we've
Yeah.
all walked into those rooms and we're like, "Whoa, what happened in here?" Right? So I think that that's a great way to bring it forward. I tend to work with my clients for a while before I feel them out before I determine if human design is a good tool for them or not, or for them to, if it's something that's going to be open to them. But yeah, so I just think that I feel like more and more of us exist. And when I say us, I mean, corporate escapees, I guess, that, have now kind of dove into it a little bit and are seeing that, wow, I wish I would have had this tool in my 30s. I could have maybe done things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But also everything happens in its right time. So.
How do you introduce it? So how do how do you find the opening? You said you wait till you work with them for a while, but what are some indicators or
Honestly,
triggers?
it's relationship, right? So I tend to, and I don't want to say friends, but I'm very, like, we're just very informal whenever we talk because I'm trying to build that relationship. And once we get to talking and like I get like a sense of like exhaustion, frustration, those types of things, the shadows, right? Then I'm like, have you ever heard of human design? I've been diving into it a little bit and I've learned so much about myself. It's something, is it something that you would be interested in, understanding or learning? And if they are, then I'll run their chart for them and share a little bit.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
great. Have
Yeah.
you done any sort of team stuff, like with a leader in HR who wants to influence a
Not
business
with
leader?
human design. No, no, not with human design. I am actually getting ready to, and this is kind of crazy because I'm not a parent, but I see it as such a valuable tool for parenting.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm getting ready to hold a parenting by design workshop to support people in getting to know who their kids were created to be.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
and I think that because I think, gosh, I can't even imagine, you have another human that you've created and like you don't understand them. Like how are you even part of me? Right.
Right.
And I know that happens especially in adolescence, right? My
Yeah.
parents, I know they had that thought a few times, but yeah, so I just think that it's such a great tool that could, potentially support that relationship with their
Yeah.
parents.
And relationships as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
for
think
sure.
about the debates, which is an easy extrapolation to working with people, but like intimate relationships, think about the debates or when a communication starts to happen and you're trying to decide what to do or how to decorate something and someone's going through all the things and wants to be like, well, what about this and this and this and for me, I'm like big picture.
Mhm.
Like, I can't, we don't start with the rug. We got to start,
Mhm.
whatever. And just learning about how someone else thinks and manages information. And I think Julie says this a lot in her work. It gives you compassion and grace for the other person, which then, this is the big thing, personally and professionally, allows you to be less on the offense. Like you might get offended, you're valid for your feelings, but you don't pick it up as quickly and carry it as a offense that goes into your backpack of being offended,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It is really incredible.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
For sure. And the relationships, I have my best friend's husband, he's, God love him. You either love him or you just don't like him. And that's just, it's one or the other. And he and I have always gotten along amazingly well. And I was reading about a manifester, right? And so the one day I was like, "Hey Heidi, send me your information and send me Anthony's." And he is a manifester.
Oh boy.
And which I started, explaining what a manifester was. And he called me immediately and he was like, "You need to tell me what I need to do with this because you're the first person that actually sees me."
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
also so
Because,
powerful.
yeah, because he's living in a generator world
Yeah.
and he's not meant to do all that. Right. But yet, I mean, he's a hard worker and he'll do whatever he needs to do, but he's a starter. He's
Yeah.
not meant to just continue to build, right? So it's so interesting as I learn more about different people and different types and stuff too. So yeah, it's been a
Mm.
lot of fun.
That's cool. I love that. I'm introducing it to my clients in workshops, mostly teaming or a lot of people who are doing executive presence, and they
Mhm,
do presentations to manage up like to boards or
mhm.
consultants who are trying to do big proposals. And it is all about their voice and how they're showing up. And I feel like that's super powerful. So
Yeah.
really, it's just it helps them stop with the over responsibility or the over team delegation, micromanaging, leading and embodying who you want to be instead of forcing people. Like I have a client, a dear client who um, just went through this teaming event, and she's like, "Oh, they're learning growth mindset versus fixed mindset," and she's like, and it's kind of an older company, so like they haven't done any personal development in a while, so these are very new concepts to these team members. And her first comment right out of the box was, I don't know if I could teach them this or if I just don't worry about it. That was her go-to. And so
Mhm,
it really wasn't about the team, was it? It was about
mm-mm.
her own mindset and how she was taking over responsibility for other people, right? And
Yeah.
that was her. I was like, just look at the sentence that came out of your mouth when you were
Mhm.
in that over responsibility and micromanaging. But if you embody that, let's talk about the ways you could show up. And then it's not like everybody sees it just because you're doing it, but you're going to talk about it differently.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it was just like one little piece, and it was super powerful.
Yeah. And I think that those are the moments that, that are the most valuable, right? The
Yeah.
ones we don't think are going to be super, that are super big. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, that opened up a floodgate, right?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I'm focusing, and I have an article that's coming out about the executive presence, as we talked about. And I'm really starting to think that maybe that's something that, excuse me, I can incorporate with my clients as well. Because I think that's, why don't they listen to me?
Yeah.
Right.
A
And that's,
100%. If they have the
yeah.
identity of the one
Mhm,
being the one who does it all,
mhm,
detaching from that identity is hard for
mhm.
them, right?
Yes.
But until they do that, that's how people are gonna perceive them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the energy of that is a little stifling on other people because it kills creativity and innovation, and they always have to have the right answer to show up. I mean, it's a whole ripple effect.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And I know some people, like, I really had a hard time getting out of the details, because the details were, I love to know who I was working with. I love to know the people. I love to know, I and even today, I can still talk about, like, oh, we hired that person, they work there. I know all the names. I know, everything that I knew back then. And so it's just, those are just like natural gifts of mine, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But whenever the company started getting so big, I didn't like it because I
Yeah.
didn't know everybody anymore.
Yeah.
And so, that was another, downside. But yeah, I think that whole, like, stepping out of the details and actually being able to, you know, have the bigger picture, and then making an impact and
Yeah.
influencing, for sure.
And was that a big transformation for you?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Because I always thought if I was doing my job, it was okay. Like, nobody really, as long as they weren't hearing from me or hearing from somebody else that I sucked, then it was okay. But no, no, that's, that's not the case.
No.
Yeah. So that's been a big transformation. That was something. And then also just how to get your voice and how to get people to listen to you. And because I remember walking out of meetings and being like, why in the hell won't they listen to me?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's definitely, and I find too that when I'm a spontaneous speaker. So when I speak, like, it just flows. And so that's kind of, what my gift is, from a voice by design.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is a
Mhm.
gift.
Yeah.
And when you're in your shadow or your challenge of that, and you're speaking from pressure or past experience or control, do you feel the difference in your
1,000%.
words?
Yeah. a
Yeah.
1,000%. Like, whenever I have a speech that I've memorized, it doesn't come out like this. Yeah, it
Mm,
doesn't come out like this at
no,
all.
no, 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 no. That's
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
powerful to know about yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, where can people find you? When do they need Melissa? Tell me about that.
I think I am most influential when when someone is ready, when they're aware that wherever they are, those skills are amazing, but I hate to use the word stuck because that's not
But it's
a
reality though.
definitive word, but they're so aware that there's more for them,
Mhm.
right? But navigating it is confusing, terrifying, or overwhelming, right? So I think it's that awareness piece because I am direct, right? I have a lot of experience to bring to the table, and I have a really great ability to see into um, what you're dealing with and maybe see what you're not seeing, right? And so we level that up quickly. So someone who's not aware of themselves is hard, right? But if they are aware and want to navigate and are interested in what's next for them, there's more. I want to get back. I'm not just this leader. I am a strong, independent woman with a lot of vitality, and I have maybe let some of that go, or I don't know how to make time for it, or my relationships have suffered, and I'm waking up one day like I know that this corporate kind of just do it and be all things to all people at all times is not enough.
Mm.
However, the most important thing for me is ambition is not a dirty word, right? And we're taught that ambition goes like this, and then we retire and we become something else. That's a bunch of BS, right?
Mhm.
For me and the clients that I work with, they have ambition and we learn how to keep it alive, but get it in balance so that you're not sacrificing family, life, beliefs, yourself, your body, your vitality, your joy of the life that you just spent so long creating, right?
Mhm.
And it's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable so that you can peel apart those patterns, create new ones, practice the new truths, and then, you know, enter this new life with new tools and freedom and joy as well as ambition. And so that's kind of that's what we work on. Individually, I do groups, and I think the best place to find me is Substack right now. Um, subscribe, follow, message me. I won't get tongue tied, I promise. I can't promise that. I can't promise that. But
Well, was this fun?
I had a blast. Yeah, yeah. It
Good.
was not fun the first couple minutes.
No, but no,
I was
no, I
looking for it.
good, good. Yeah, no, and I think this is just a fun, and that's what I found too, because I did not want to do video. I really did not. And
Yeah,
I have found that I love connecting with people and I love my coffee talks with people.
yeah,
So I'm like, why the hell not just do that on video? So that's why
you
we're
do.
here. And this was great. And I always learn so much. So
Yeah.
so yeah, thank you so much for, I know it was uncomfortable at first, but it's all good. And I think it was a great display of how knowing your human design and explaining how things happen. And it worked right into our call for sure.
100%. Just being human. Like we're
Yes.
real. I'm learning as I go, right? I
Yes.
mean, it's just being real.
And
So
this is, entrepreneurship is a lot different than corporate, right? A lot different. We are everything. So we are figuring it out. I'm over here trial and erroring, right?
I'm so lucky.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you so much for joining. And
Thank you.
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.